Okay, welcome to the Tri-State Steelheaders Salmon and School Education Series. I've introduced myself a bunch of times, but I'm Brock. I'm one of the environmental educators with the Tri-State Steelheaders, and I'm joined by my buddy Mikio.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mikio. I'm a sophomore here at Whitman College, and I'm an education intern for the Tri-State Steelheaders, who's lucky enough to get to work with Brock.
So, today we're going to be talking about the salmon and trout species of Washington State. Mainly, we're going to be talking about the native salmon and trout species. There's a couple trout that are found in the state that we're not going to be talking about because we're just going to try to keep to the native species. So, first off, we want to say that there are 5 species of salmon in the state of Washington. Some people say 6. That depends on if you define or if you say that a steelhead is a salmon. They are Oncorhynchus mykiss, so they are also a rainbow trout, so things get fuzzy there. So we're just going to say that there are 5 species of salmon. And all these fish are a part of the genus Oncorhynchus, and they are all anadromous.
Yeah, anadromous is a big word. We'll cover this in class a bunch of times, but anadromous mean fish that are born in freshwater, our rivers, our creeks, our streams, and migrate out to the ocean, feed. They eat a bunch of different things, get really big and fat, and then come back into freshwater to spawn. And that's their life cycle.
Yeah, and when they're out in the ocean, they have a different coloration than when they come back into freshwater. So when they're out in the ocean, they'll have a silvery color to them. And then when they come back into freshwater, that's when they start getting those greens, those reds, those oranges, and those darker, more beautiful colors that we all know about salmon. And as we're going through these 5 salmon species and some of the trout, we're going to have some hand signals to try to help us remember them. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can follow along with the hand signals. If you're listening to this at home, just think about them or try them on your hand. If you're driving, just please do not use your hands. Focus on driving. So our first species is the chum salmon or the dog salmon. So we can remember that with our thumb. Thumb is for chum. That is Oncorhynchus gorbushka. So this species, it's green, has some purple vertical stripes on it when it's in its spawning colors. It does not have any spots and has really, really gnarly teeth. They're called dog, 1, because of those gnarly teeth, and 2, because they don't have the greatest flavor. They're a really poor tasting fish. It's kind of like biting into a fish oil pill. So they call them dog because they feed them to dogs. That's the main use for these fish. It's dog food. If you want to take the next fish?
Yeah. Really quickly, the scientific name for dog salmon is Oncorhynchus keta. Keta instead of gorbushka. Brock is just really excited. We really like pink salmon. We're going to get to that in a second. Our second salmon is going to be our pointer finger for our sockeye.
Sockeye. Pointer finger to eye. Sockeye.
Exactly. That's how we remember it. Sockeye are Oncorhynchus nerca. So that second word is a little bit different. But sockeye are known for the really bright, really red bodies when they come back to spawn into freshwater. You'll find them in huge numbers up in Alaska. They're super fun to catch, and they taste good. Sockeye don't have any they don't have any dots on them, and that'll be an important factor to help identify them later on.
Yeah. So that's our sockeye salmon. So we have thumb for chum, our finger to our eye. That's sockeye. And then our biggest finger, that would be our king salmon or our Chinook salmon. That's Oncorhynchus shai-sha, which is the most confusing one to spell. This is our biggest salmon. They can get up to 5 feet long. They can weigh up to 125 pounds. So a huge, huge salmon, probably the size of like an average 4th grader, I would say.
I'm 5'7", so not much smaller than me.
Yeah. So they're really, really big fish. They're native to our Columbia River system. We have a fall run and a spring run here in Walla Walla. There's also a summer run elsewhere. And they are one of our most important commercial fish historically in the state of Washington and just around the West Coast.
Yeah. Fun fact, the fish or the eggs, or maybe even fry at this point, in your tank are going to be Chinook salmon, spring Chinook salmon.
Yep.
Our fourth species out of our 5 are going to be our silvers. Our silver salmon or coho are known as Oncorhynchus kisuch. And silvers are known to be, they look really similar to king salmon. And so there are a few main identifiers that we use to help separate those two. Silver salmon will have white gums around their teeth compared to black gums, which king salmon have. They have red and green spawning colors. They look super cool when they come back into freshwater.
Yeah, they're pretty great fish, and that's a great thing to mention is identifying the difference between a king and a Chinook salmon, with the king salmon having black gums and the coho salmon having white gums. That's a great identification tool to use because they look so similar.
Yep.
So
silver.
Our next fish is the pink or the humpy. So we're going to remember that with our pinky finger. This is Oncorhynchus gorbushka.
That would be correct.
Not the dog salmon. That is Oncorhynchus kita. This is Oncorhynchus gorbushka, the pink salmon. They're also called humpies because the males have a huge hump on their back. They are a ridiculous looking fish, I think, but they're also one of my favorites. They're a really cool fish. Their coloration is green, then yellow, green, then pink, and then white. I've heard that they're called pink because of that pink band. Mikio has a different story of why they're called pinks.
Yeah, well, pink salmon are the smallest of these 5 fish that are found in Washington State. For that reason, we're not going to find them here in Walla Walla. They don't have the fat reserves or the size to make it up the Columbia River all this way, unfortunately. But where I'm from, in Seattle, I've been fortunate enough to catch these fish, and I've caught some pink salmon with that huge hump. It's super cool.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is that pink salmon are pink due to the foods they eat out in the ocean. So crustaceans, krill, maybe plankton. A lot of the sources of the food that they eat are pink, just like how a flamingo is pink because of the food that a flamingo eats. So that's where it gets its name from.
Yeah. So those are our 5 salmon species that we're talking about. Thumb for chum, finger to eye, sockeye. Our biggest finger, biggest salmon, the king salmon, the Chinook. Our ring finger is like a silver ring, so our silver salmon or our coho. And then our pinky for pink, or our humpbacks, our humpies. So those are our 5 salmon. Now let's move on to our trout. Now trout, except for the last trout we're going to talk about, are also a part of the genus Oncorhynchus. So they're very closely related to the 5 salmon species that we've talked about. And the first one that we're going to describe is sometimes considered salmon itself. So that would be the steelhead or the rainbow. You can remember the steelhead by bumping your head, or you can make a little rainbow over your head, and that's the rainbow trout. They are the same species. They are both Oncorhynchus micus. So they're the same species of fish, but they live lives a little bit differently. A rainbow trout is considered a resident trout. It lives its entire life in freshwater. It will always be in a river, stream, creek, lake, pond, never out into the ocean. However, a steelhead is a lot like one of our salmon species. It will start out in freshwater. It will go out to saltwater, get big, fat, and happy on the all-you-can-eat seafood buffet, and then come back to spawn. That anadromous life cycle. They look really similar, our resident rainbows and our anadromous steelhead. They are a chromy color. They have a pink band right down the middle of their body.
Super pretty.
Yeah, that's how they get their rainbow name. And they have spots along their backs. It's kind of the quintessential fish of the Northwest. If you are from the West Coast, or if you've just gone fishing for trout in general, you've probably interacted with a rainbow trout.
Yeah. You might have also been lucky enough to run into a cutthroat trout, which has a lot of similarities, but a few big differences from rainbow trout and steelhead. Cutthroat trout, you're going to see a red slash on their neck, right above their gills. Hence, it's named the cutthroat trout. Cutthroat trout will typically have less spots than a rainbow trout, maybe a little bit of like a yellowish, orangish tint to it. But the telltale sign of a cutthroat trout is that red slash by their gills.
Yeah. And another cool thing about our cutthroat trout is that their name is Oncorhynchus clarkii. This is one of my favorite fun facts about the naming of species, is that there was Lewis and Clark expedition, and William Clark, one of his favorite fish that they encountered was the cutthroat trout. And
Yeah.
so when they gave the cutthroat trout its scientific name, they named it Oncorhynchus clarkii in his honor, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super cool. Our last main trout species that you might be able to find here in Washington State is a bull trout.
Yeah.
And we have our hand signals. We're going to put our bull horns above our heads. Our bull trout are a little bit different from their trout cousins.
Yeah, so our bull trout are a part of the genus Salvelinus. So we've talked about these 5 salmon species, our rainbow trout, and our cutthroat trout, and they're part of the genus Oncorhynchus. So Salvelinus for bull trout, that is the char genus. So those are more closely related to Arctic char, or to brook trout, or to lake trout. They have a very gray coloration. They're kind of eel looking. They have like a really, really smooth body. They have light colored spots, so like a cream or a red colored spot on a darker background, which is the opposite of our Oncorhynchus genus that has black spots on a light background. So if you see that flop, you might be looking at a Salvelinus fish. One main difference between, say, bull trout and our non-native brook trout are that bull trout do not have any black on their dorsal fin, on that top fin of their body, whereas a brook trout would have dark spots. So if you're fishing in the Pacific Northwest or the Western United States in general, and you catch a fish that looks like it could be a brook trout, it could be a bull trout, look for that black on the top of its body, on that dorsal fin. And if it has black, you can keep it. If it doesn't have black, put it back. All right? And we want to put those back because they're critically endangered. Over much of their range, bull trout have declined tremendously, and there are insane conservation efforts going out to try to save these incredible fish. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll list them all really quickly for you all.
Yeah.
We have our thumb for chum.
Yep. Pointer finger to our eye, that's our sockeye.
Big finger, our biggest finger, is going to be for king or chinook.
Our ring finger is like a silver ring, so that will be our silver salmon or our coho.
And our last finger, our smallest one, is our pinky, also known for pink salmon or humpies.
Yeah. Now our trout species. So we have our rainbow trout, so that's a rainbow over your head, or you can bonk your head with your hand, and that's our steelhead.
Yep. We have our cutthroat trout, which are our red slash above the gills.
And then our last trout that we talked about are the bull trout, and that is making bull fingers over the top of your head. These are critically endangered fish, and the only members of Salvelinus that we talked about today.
Nice. Well, hopefully you've learned a little bit about the species of trout and salmon in our waters here in Washington State. We hope that you can use this information to help identify them for yourself, maybe if you go fishing recreationally in the future. And it's also really good to know what's swimming around in your rivers around home.
Yeah, it's great to just have a general knowledge of the ecology around you and the species around you. It helps you build a better connection with your home, with your place, and it's just kind of fun. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Whitman for letting us use their recording facilities, and we'll see you on the flip side. Bye.
Bye.